And as for today, the area of interest shall be welfare, economics, and the agriculture markets. So our focus is to understand the market for agriculture output and the market for the farm inputs. Shall we just quickly try to review the consumer theory? You know, the traditional theory only considers the commodities at face value. Okay? It is assumed that consumers derive their utility from the commodities that they consume. The consumer is concerned about the units of goods that they can buy with the resources that they have available. Now, let's look at the Lancaster's model of consumer demand. Some topics cannot be analyzed easily with the framework of the traditional demand theory. This is what we just get to understand. Things like, the effects of advertising, product differentiation, and the demand for improved products. So the demand for improved products, the effect of advertising and the product differentiation, these concepts cannot really be analyzed using the traditional demand theory. So it is for this reason as to why the Lancaster's model was brought into existence. So what is there under Lancaster's model? The consumer is interested in the characteristics or attributes of the good, such as the nutrients, the engine capacity, etc., etc. So under Lancaster's model, the consumer is basically interested in the characteristics and the attributes of the good or the product. So they're interested in the characteristics and the attributes of the particular commodity. It could include things such as let's speak for a food product. What are some of the nutrients that are available in there? All right. If it could be a car, what's the engine? All right. What's the engine model? What's the capacity of this? What are some of the attributes and characteristics of this particular commodity? And that is the focus of the Lancaster's model. So the relationship between consumer satisfaction and the consumption of characteristics or attributes is basically defined by the utility function. Okay, that is U is basically a function of the total amount of characteristics that range from I to N. So each characteristic is quantifiable and can be objectively measured. And again, these characteristics are basically derived from the goods that the consumer buys from the market. So when we look at the total characteristics, the total amount of the ith characteristics possessed by a set of the market good is the sum of the amounts of the characteristic possessed by each good separately. I'll repeat, I'm saying that the total amount of the ith characteristic possessed by a set of the market goods is basically the summation of the amounts of the characteristic possessed by each good separately. So basically you're trying to add together the characteristics possessed by each good separately so that you can make up the total amount of the ith characteristic of a set of some market goods. So, for example, the ZI calories, the characteristic, so a pint of market contains, let's say, 320 calories, and a loaf of bread, 1,200 calories. Total calories shall be 320 and 1,200 from the quantity of bread. So sum together, those are the characteristics, total characteristics. That is to say, the calories. So what about the budget constraint now under this particular model? The limiting total expenditure of the market goods is basically income. So consumer is able to maximize the problem. So consumer's problem is to find the goods or the combination of the goods which are efficient in the provision of the attributes or characteristics and which yield the maximum level of utility. Okay, that is the focus of the consumer. He's basically facing this problem, of finding the good or the combination of the goods which are efficient in the provision of the characteristics or simply the attributes which yield the maximum level of satisfaction. That's about the consumer, and this is the problem that the consumer faces under Lancaster's model. Now, let's look at the consumer's equilibrium point. Some assumptions here are recorded. Number one, two food products are there. Let's have Q1 and Q2. And we have two characteristics. Let's name them Z1 and Z2. Let's have Q1 that provides the nutrients in the proportion of, basically OM. Okay, that's about Q1. It provides the nutrients in the proportion of OM from O here to M. And the Q2 provides the nutrients in the proportion of ON. These are the two quantities that we have. Okay. Now, so if we're given the prices and the level of income, the maximum amount of the characteristics which can be obtained from Q1, let's say it is basically Z1 and Z2. That is the maximum that can be obtained from Q1. Okay, which is basically OM, right? From OM. We can have Z1 and Z2, right? And again, if you're given Q2, which is ON, the maximum we can have is basically Z prime and Z prime 1 and Z prime 2. Z prime 1 and Z prime 2. So basically, these are some of the levels that we have. So now, the efficient set of consumer choice for a combination of the two products is indicated by the level MN, all right? MN, where Q1 and Q2 are fully combined together. So the consumers will be in equilibrium somewhere along the MN line, okay, where the two characteristics are really, really combined together. So consumer's equilibrium basically will depend on his or her indifference map. So let's look at the three possible solutions. Number one, consumer A will choose to purchase only product Q1, all right, product Q1, and consumer B buys a combination of the two products, that is Q1 and Q2, and consumer C purchases only Q2. Let's have these three consumers. Yeah. So these are possible solutions. Somebody can decide to consume all right? Consumer B chooses both of them, and he will be in between. Okay? Now, let's look at the usefulness of the Lancaster's model. Is the Lancaster's model useful? No. The theory suggests that goods which provide the same characteristics will be closely related in their consumption. I'm saying that the theory suggests that goods which provide the same attributes or characteristics will be closely related in the consumption. Let's say the demand for beef and chicken will be more closely related than the demand for beef and newspapers. So this is what we are trying just to put here. So the theory will really help us to understand, okay, that the goods that provide same characteristics, same attributes will really be closely related in terms of consumption. And again, it helps us to understand the product differentiation. Since consumers will have different tests regarding the attributes of the market goods, It may pay firms, or indeed the same firm, to produce an array of brands of the product, each having slightly different characteristics. I'm saying that since consumers will have different tastes regarding the attributes of the market goods, it may pay, the firms, or indeed the same firm, to produce an array of brands of the product, each having slightly different characteristics. So the Lancaster's model is able to help us to understand the effect of product differentiation. It is able to help us understand advertising. That is to say, advertising can be used as a means of persuading consumers to purchase one brand rather than another, thus altering the consumer's preference map. So you will see that the preference map will be altered specifically by advertising. So you can see that using advertising can be trying to persuade consumers to purchase one brand rather than another, thus altering the consumer's preference map. Advertising. In the traditional demand theory, it is difficult actually to find the role of advertising. It is assumed that consumers have given tastes which, with regard to the market, goods, and the perfect knowledge of prices and income. If consumers have perfect knowledge of the market opportunities, informative advertising can be incorporated into the model. Now, advertising can alter consumers' preference such that more of another product is purchased. However, when we talk about advertising, it doesn't really mean that sometimes it will always be good. There is what we call deceptive advertising. This works to benefit actually the producer and make the consumer worse off. This is deceptive advertising. So the efficient set of choices would lie along MN. That's what we have agreed. Now, through advertising, false claims can be made about Q2, which would lead a consumer to believe that it yields any characteristics. Okay, any characteristics. Read 6. Now, choice is limited to MN, and the consumer cannot reach a high indifference curve, but they will only discover after purchasing the good. Alright? Yeah. Discover the good. Deception would be undertaken if not the same consumers would purchase the good at a later date. So deception would be undertaken if not the same consumers would purchase the good at a later date again. So this is basically what is given in the Lancaster's model. We can be able to appreciate the model in that it helps us to understand product differentiation, helps us to understand the advertising at the same time. But again, at the same time, we need to appreciate Becker's model of consumer demand. Okay, because Becker as well brings her own theories, and he helps us to understand this. He takes as the decision-making unit the household and focuses on the allocation of household time. So Becker, that's what he takes. Okay, that's what is taken by Becker actually. And again, the basis upon which the model is, it is that the consumer is not interested in the market goods, but he is rather interested in the basic commodities such as the nourishment, the comfort, entertainment, etc., from which utility is directly derived or obtained. These are produced by the consumer through the productive activity of combining the purchased market goods with the household on time. Consumer's problem now. What is the problem with the consumer? The consumer is subjected to the problem to maximize utility and is subject to the following constraints. the household production function to each basic commodity, and the consumer has infinite amount of time. All right, so the production function, that is the technology, and the other thing that really affects the consumer here is the amount of time available. So we'll have to divide the time between the labor market and the household production. Yeah, should we go for production? Should we be in the labor market working? And again, is constrained by the budget constraint. How much do they really have? Demand and production theory. The consumer will respond to the following things. Number one, the changes in the prices in market goods. They will respond to income. They will respond to opportunity cost of time. This is basically the wage rate, okay? They will respond to the changes in the productivity of goods. They will respond to the time in the production process. So consumers will respond to time in the production process, the changes in the productivity of goods, and the opportunity cost of time to income, and the changes in the prices of market goods. Now, is the Becker's model useful? The demand of the market good is derived demand. Number one, the Becker's model stresses a very, very, very important point on the allocation of time in the consumer or household decision making. Time allocation, very, very important. Now, the model offers a basis for analysis of transactions that do not go through the market, right? It gives us the basis upon which we need to base our analysis of the transactions that do not go through the market. Because many, households allocate a large portion of time, as water carrying, fuel gathering, food production, for which there is even no market for that, okay? Now, it can be used as a framework for the study of the household decision making regarding nutrition, healthy status, education, and the number of children, okay? The number of children. This is now the usefulness of the Lancaster's model. You can use it as a framework for the study of the household decision making regarding nutrition, regarding healthy status, regarding education, and the number of children that we would want to have.